All right, guys, I got another question that came in a day or two ago, and the question was about cohabitation in the Philippines. People living together outside of marriage, or shacking up, as some people call it. And the question was, how common is that in the Philippines, and whether or not it is accepted in the society in the Philippines. And before I answer the question and tell you my observations, I just need to say something that as a Christian, I believe that people who live together, share the same food, share the same bed, all that kind of thing, when men and women do that, that they should be married. That's my view on that, and that's not up for debate. So if you want to argue with me about that, you can email me, send me a nasty email if you want, but please don't put that in the comments. I'm just telling you my own convictions about this based on what's in the Bible. And another thing I'll add quickly is just because I believe this way, it doesn't mean that I treat people badly because they live a lifestyle that I don't think God approves of. I mean, my wife and I have had several friends that live together, and we have talked to them, and if they ask us, we'll tell them what we think about that decision. But it doesn't mean that we look down upon people who are making a choice that we don't think is the best choice. Okay, so just wanted to kind of give you an introduction of where I stand on that issue. But the question was, is it common for people to live together outside of marriage in the Philippines? And I would say yes, it's common. I don't have any statistics on how common it is, but I've encountered it a lot, and there are different reasons for this. One, the Philippines is still what I would call a conservative culture in some ways. They still kind of stick to what people would call culturally. There's still a lot of value put on what we would call a traditional sense of family and a traditional sense of morality. But at the same time, there's another sense in which the society and the culture is moving away from that. And we could call it being more of a westernized culture if you want. If you wanted to call it a more secular culture. In the Philippines, a lot of times what they call it is being liberated, meaning if someone is liberated, that means that they have kind of thrown aside some of the traditional values and that kind of thing. But anyway, you do see that more in the Philippines, people moving away from their roots as far as their morals and values go. And I think you would probably see this a lot more in the cities, especially, and among I would say, like movie stars and people like that, people that are famous. A lot of times, I mean, when you're a celebrity in the Philippines, it's like the U.S. Everyone knows your business. And you see a lot of celebrities living that way. They'll live with someone for a while and have a baby or two, then live with someone else for a while. You see a lot of that. So that's one reason that it's becoming common, is just the society's becoming more secular in some ways, or liberated. Uh, Another thing that I've seen, reasons why people live together outside of marriage, in some cases the couple wants to try to they kind of want to do I guess you could say a test drive. They want to see if they can get along together before they get married. And in some cases what happens even is the couple she's gotten pregnant and they have a baby together, and they just want to see, can we survive as a family? Can we get along? Can we be parents for this child? And they just want to, like I said, they just want to try it and see first. That's what their mentality is. Again, I don't agree with that. I don't think that usually works, but that's what some are doing. And this is kind of goes along with that. I think one reason that couples try living together in the Philippines is there's no divorce in the Philippines. And that's kind of ironic. You would think, well, be having no divorce, that would make families stronger, and that would tend to make people more, conservative or whatever. And maybe it does in some ways, but I think what goes through a lot of young people's minds is that if we can't get along, or if I try this and this guy turns out to be a womanizer or a drug addict or whatever, and and this turns out to be awful, if we're married, that I'm really stuck. I think that's the way some of them think. And therefore, they live together just because they're afraid of getting married. They're afraid that of getting stuck in a lifelong commitment, a lifelong contract with somebody that may turn out to be not so good. A couple of more reasons why people live together outside of marriage is that there can be pressure. It's kind of weird, but there can be pressure in the Philippines to put on a big, impressive wedding. And I have talked to couples who tell me, well, we're saving up for our wedding. We're living together, but we're saving up for our wedding, because there can be kind of an element in Filipino culture that it's shameful or nakakahiya if you don't have a really big, impressive wedding. And again, that's not a I disagree with that way of thinking, but that's just the way some see it in the Philippines. A couple more things. Sometimes people live together outside of marriage because they're already married to someone else. So this happens all the time in the Philippines. People get legally separated from their spouse, and then they end up living with someone else and starting another family. Happens all the time. And again, it's just one of the things that comes up because of the divorce laws in the Philippines. A couple more things. One, some people just don't want to get married, just like here in the United States or anywhere else. Sometimes people just don't want to get married. And last but not least, something that I think happens sometimes is from, let's say you have an American that's living in the Philippines, and he is 100% committed to the woman he's with, but he wants to get her to the U.S. as quickly as possible. And as I've mentioned in another video, the fiancé visa is much faster than the spousal visa. What they do sometimes is they'll just live together, and in their mind, maybe they're husband and wife, but they'll just live together because that way then they can just apply for a fiancé visa and get to the States more quickly. So those are some of the reasons that people live together outside of marriage in the Philippines. And it's not accepted in the sense that people, generally speaking, people would say, no, this is not the way to do things. But as with many things in the Philippines, it's tolerated. The Philippines is a very tolerant society, even if you're living in a way that violates some of the cultural norms. As long as you're not hurting anyone, the society is going to be very tolerant of you. The older folks, it's just like here in the United States, the older generations do not approve of this way of living at all, but some of the younger people don't see a problem with it. One final thing I would add here, again, this is just like here in the United States. It would also depend on how big of a role someone's church and faith plays in his or her life. If someone is more kind of, let's say, a nominal member of the church, let's say the Catholic Church, and they go to Mass every once in a while, but it's not just this big part of their lives, then they may be more open to or tolerant of this kind of decision. Whereas if you have someone, like that's like me, that's really, really very serious about following the Lord, and their whole family's that way, then they're really going to frown upon living together outside of marriage. So anyway, I hope this video helps. I hope I've answered your question, and feel free to answer a question anytime. If you want, you can email me. It's kuyakevin@gmail.com. That's KUYAKEVIN @gmail.com. Send your question to me, and I'll do my best to answer it.